Hello Cogitantes. Today I'm opening up the fascinating 15th anniversary project for the NieR franchise. It's called Undecided Opinion and it was released in April last year in 3 waves. It is a series of novels and right out of the gate it features this incredible meta layer, the URLs. So if you look at the URLs on the official site, they contain hidden hexadecimal codes. These codes translate into symbolic kanji hints for the story, words like darkness, flower, naked, and death. So before you even read a single word, the web browser itself is setting the tone for you. Here's how that URL structure frames the entire narrative architecture. It establishes the overarching theme, which is that memory isn't just a biological recording of things that happen, it's more tangible than that. It's a fragile structural archive that literally holds the shape of you together. The text treats identity as external data. It's not something you just possess inside you, it's something you have to actively go out and retrieve. Okay, let's unpack this because the setup is incredibly stark. We start with our protagonist and he just wakes up in total darkness. Just a void, a complete void. He has no memory, no name, and he is completely naked, like zero markers on who he is. So he just starts walking. I mean, there's nothing else to do, right? And then he encounters this mysterious white-haired boy who gives him this terrifying warning. The boy says if he doesn't recover his memories quickly, he will literally vanish from existence. And then the boy just snaps his finger. The darkness shatters, and suddenly they're standing in this pristine flower garden. But it's not just a normal garden. Buried in the flower beds are these rusted metallic structures that the boy calls antennas, which is where the concept of the external archive comes into play. They're like hardware. The antennas act as external hard drives. So when the protagonist touches one, a torrent of data just pours into his mind. He's not recollecting his past, he's literally downloading it. It feels less like a guy recovering from amnesia and more like, I don't know, booting up a corrupted computer in safe mode. But the download process is clumsy. He realizes the first anchor he needs is this person named Yona, but he's still naked, he lacks definition. So the system, through this white-haired boy, starts cycling him through bizarre outfits to give him shape. It gives him a clown costume, then a spacesuit, then a combat android attire. Just throwing things at the wall. And he rejects all of them until a familiar outfit finally makes the edges of his existence come into focus. The classic NieR look. Now, I have to admit, I got a little hung up here. Like, why a clown suit and a spacesuit? Is it just random franchise fan service to get a laugh? Or is there like a mechanical reason the system is throwing these avatars at him? Well, looking at the text, it definitely reads like massive system instability rather than just a joke. So the mind or the server environment he's trapped in is struggling to lock onto a single cohesive reality. There are system-style text errors popping up in the narrative itself. It suggests the archive isn't a sealed ecosystem. Data from other timelines or other parts of the network is just bleeding in. The system is essentially throwing corrupted cache files at him, trying on different historical data points before finding one that matches his specific signature. So to find out who he actually is, the system forces him to download the data of other people first. The antennas pull memories from wildly different eras. The system is basically operating on the logic that you cannot rebuild an ego in isolation. You have to develop empathy first. Identity, according to this archive, is completely relational. You only know who you are by understanding who you love and who you have lost. Then comes the Pascal memory chapter. So Pascal is a machine life form wandering a ruined village in the distant future, completely devoid of his memories. But he spends his time making junk flowers out of scrap metal and placing them all around. And he has no idea why he's doing it until a child machine brings him a real flower, and the visual data of the real flower just bypasses his deleted files. It triggers a tidal wave of suppressed horror. He remembers the destruction of his previous village, the deaths of the machine children, and the fact that he voluntarily chose to wipe his own memory because the grief was unbearable. He realizes his junk flowers are subconscious graveside offerings. The psychological mechanism is brilliant here. Even when a file is permanently deleted from the hard drive, the behavioral ritual surrounding that file survives. His body remembers the shape of the grief even when the data itself was gone. Then comes the reincarnation memory chapter. Two girls wandering a white desert meet this small polite machine collecting relics in a ruined museum. The machine takes them to a broken planetarium where the inert body of its dead friend sits, and they try to fix the star projector to give the friend one last view of the sky, but they lack a lens. So what does the machine do? It literally rips out its own mechanical eye, takes the eye from its dead friend, and uses them together as lenses to project the stars. Mechanical beings perform these deeply human rituals of memorialization, sacrifice, hope, and by forcing our protagonist to witness this, the archive is essentially constructing a scaffolding of empathy for him to build his own identity upon. Which brings up a wildly creepy element to all this, the hidden logs. If this is just an internal psychological journey to rebuild his identity, why are there sinister system logs hidden behind the scenes? Because into the actual HTML source code of the web pages in these chapters, hidden in the code, there are messages saying unauthorized transmission detected. It notes direct interference from the cage, the massive futuristic quantum server on the moon. How does a quantum server physically hack into a personal memory garden? Well, in the NieR universe, the line between biological memory and digital data has always been kind of porous. But here it completely dissolves. The implication of those HTML codes is that the act of remembering is being actively observed and manipulated by an external global network. The cage is a repository of all human history. So, if our protagonists' memories are data, they are susceptible to a data breach. The overarching server is trying to access or perhaps overwrite his localized personal files. It turns a psychological struggle into a sci-fi cyber attack. And the localized files clearly cannot handle that kind of breach, because the moment the protagonist actually starts to download his own true past as companions, Cain, Emil, Weiss, the beautiful garden, he violently rejects the data. He wants those files back, but his core programming is simultaneously terrified of them, and the contradiction just crashes the system. The imagery of that crash is pure visceral horror. A violent wind rips through the garden. The trees wither into thorns. Thunder rolls in, and the flowers, the moonflowers, he finds a patch of them, but when he steps on them, the flowers literally squeal and cry out in physical pain. It is incredibly unsettling. And the ultimate shock hits when he looks closely at the white-haired boy who has been guiding him, the guide, and he realizes the boy shares his exact face, the double, the mirror, and he finally remembers who he is. He is NieR, but the identity he downloads isn't the hero who saved the day, it's the post-game apocalyptic reality. He remembers hunting down and killing the Shadow Lord to save Yona, but in doing so, he doomed reality. We see the fallout of that choice. Murderers Devola and Popola, android units descended on his village, slaughtering everyone. He and Yona have to flee into a ruined, depopulated world. The archive forces him to look directly at the consequences of his triumph. He didn't just save his sister, he destroyed the ecosystem that allowed them to exist in the first place. And it gets even darker. They end up in an underground facility, and Yona's memories are restored. She understands what they are, replicants, and she realizes that the entire world was sacrificed simply so she could live. The guilt just breaks her. She chose to die because she couldn't bear the crushing guilt of surviving at the cost of humanity. Which circles back to the mirror motif with the white-haired guide. When NieR carries Yona's body to the Shadow Lord's castle, he faces her horrifying realization. He and the Shadow Lord are identical mirrors, trapped in the exact same structural loop. Both were brothers who willingly chose to doom the entire world to save their sister. NieR destroyed the world for Yona exactly the same way the Shadow Lord did. They are the same entity, making the same catastrophic calculation. So you spend the whole game bravely hunting the monster only to find a mirror at the end. And your reward is watching everything you fought for turn to ash, which perfectly sets up the climax of the entire puzzle. The nature of the archive and the burden of those choices collide in a massive ethical dilemma. And the way to access this climax is pure genius. The URL manipulation. After that devastating realization, the URL for the chapter handed in a hexadecimal code that translates to light or death. By removing light from the record of transience URL, you can reveal the hidden branching chapter, which opens into the scene root and its related pages. By making the reader alter the URL, the narrative requires you to actively seek out the sin. You have to manipulate the code of the story to face the consequences. It's brilliant. So NieR is back in the decaying garden. The guide with his face is revealed as the Shadow Lord, and the Shadow Lord offers NieR a choice. He says they can combine their magical books, Grimoire Noir and Grimoire Weiss, and alter the code of fate itself. They can undo their original sin. But there's a massive catch. Because when you rewrite a root directory, you erase everything built on top of it, right? If they undo the past to save themselves and prevent the apocalypse, it will erase the later futures NieR has just seen in the antennas. Pascal's peaceful machine village erased, the machine ripping out its eye to repair the stars. Thousands of years of subsequent history, struggle, and connection wiped out in a single keystroke. So the story presents two distinct branches. Branch A, reject the sin. Okay, in this one, NieR chooses to go back in time all the way to snowy Shinjuku in 2053. He refuses the magical pact that started the entire cascading tragedy. He decides he will just try to survive in the snow with Yona using his own human strength, which would sacrifice the later futures NieR has just seen in the antennas. So he's prioritizing his own localized, immediate love for the sister over the existence of entire future civilizations and millennia of history. I mean, it's an act of profound selfishness, but I'm going to push back hard on that. Calling it selfish feels a bit clinical to me. You could argue it's an act of localized mercy. You look at a timeline filled with endless war, robotic despair, planetary extinction, and deciding I'm not going to be the catalyst for all that suffering. I see that perspective, but by doing so, he is also denying the beauty, the empathy, and the connections that emerge from that suffering, like Pascal and the museum machine, which perfectly sets up branch B, accept the sin. In this branch, NieR looks at those memories of the future, imagines Yona witnessing those fragile, beautiful moments from the antennas, and he realizes Yona would absolutely hate if entire futures were erased just to keep her safe. So he accepts his sin. Accepting the sin leads toward ending E, with NieR later reuniting with older Yona and his companions. Now, put yourself in that garden. If you had the grimoires in front of you, Would you erase thousands of years of strangers' lives just to save your own family? By choosing branch B, NieR demonstrates incredible moral maturity, I think. He accepts a deeply flawed, agonizing reality. He chooses messy, painful relationships over a pristine, completely erased past. It's an acknowledgement that profound beauty can take root in the soil of our worst mistakes. And this is what makes this moment so interesting. Right now, there is no concrete new NieR game to point to. What we have instead is a pattern. First, the official to be continued tease around Automata, and then this year's fake NieR Cosmic Horror announcement with that grotesque enemy design and horror framing. So maybe Undecided Opinion is doing two things at once. On the one hand, it deepens NieR's old obsession with memory, guilt, and branching consequence. On the other, it may be testing a new direction, not just tragedy, but intrusion, corrupted archives, hostile observation. Because we all carry our own antennas of past grief, joy, and regret. We are walking archives. Every choice you made, every person you've loved, every loss you've endured, these are the data points that give your existence its edges. And that raises a fascinating thought to leave you with, actually. We talked about how the cage operates as a quantum server, constantly observing and recording, right? Well, in a true quantum environment, data is never actually destroyed. It merely changes state or becomes inaccessible. Okay, if branch B represents a timeline that was rejected and deleted, where does that data go? Does it just vanish? Or does it become phantom data haunting the server? Think about the architecture of your own mind. How many unlived lives, untaken branches, and rejected choices are floating around in your personal archive like phantom data? How often do these ghosts of the choices you didn't make subtly influence the reality you're living in today? The ghost of our unchosen branches. So keep exploring the complex archives of your own lives. And remember, the next time you misplace a memory, maybe don't just look in your head. Try digging in the garden. Happy thinking.